You're right on time because Orange Juice in the Kitchen is about to get started. We're your hosts. I'm Annie Graff.
And I'm Maggie Jensen. Pull up a chair because the OJ is flowing and it's about to get juicy.
We're getting deep in our convos about sobriety and mental health because that's how we've both found deep love for ourselves and the lives we live.
And when you love yourself in your life, there's nothing to escape. This is the real on how vibrant and colorful alcohol freedom feels. So grab your glass.
Cheers, besties. Let's chat. We are back with Orange Juice in the Kitchen. Be a fly on the wall with myself and my girl, Maggie. We are so excited because today we're talking about something really fun, and that is fun in sobriety. Believe it or freaking not, removing alcohol from your life and having fun is very much a thing. And previous to my sober journey, starting about 16 months ago, I was at a loss. I was at a loss for what to do, how to have fun. And if you're feeling that sort of way, maybe that is one of the things that's creating hesitation for actual action in your sober curiosity. Or maybe you've removed alcohol and you're like, check. I know I feel better. I feel like my sleep is better and I feel like I have more energy, but what do I do? We have a great conversation loading for you guys on ideas, on activities, on places to immerse yourself in and find that fun, find enjoyment and excitement in sobriety. And also, we're going to have a little conversation on why it is that you might be feeling these sort of ways and actually what's going on within your body on where that is happening. Because if you're feeling that sort of way, it's very normal. And Maggie and I both have felt that in the beginning phases of sobriety, pre-sobriety, dabbling with sober weekends and sober months, and resuming back into old habits. And we're going to kind of give you guys a little bit of the science breakdown on why that is what it is and kind of where the workaround and where the work is to be done when you're experiencing those things.
Yes. And as we're going through today's conversation, we just want you to keep in mind that there's a place for you to practice these things. We're going to go through a bunch of activity ideas. We're going to talk about, what we learned when we tried them, what we learned when we experimented with them. And if you're down to experiment with them as well, then we are going to pop a link in the description to our new Sober Confident Collective group where you can play sober bingo with us. And the idea is that each box represents a new activity in your alcohol freedom for you to literally experiment with what we are talking about today. Yes, there might be thoughts that cross your mind saying, that's lame, that'll be boring, that's scary. But as you check these boxes off, you are going to grow in your confidence and your awareness that you are the fun, that you bring the party wherever you go. And that is a mindset that is something that you can build, even though maybe from where you're sitting right now, you're like, sobriety is boring AF. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, it's so exciting to see people in this group. Like we have people going to hot yoga, people hosting dinner parties for their friends, people taking on adrenaline-based activities, people immersing themselves in completely new communities in their city that they didn't even know were a thing. People honestly just stepping up to the challenge of, okay, if this is a game, let me play. Let me get in on it and let me figure it out. Because sometimes part of the hesitation, not only in just doubting that there is fun to be had in sobriety, but it's this I'm kind of doing it by myself. And that feels like there's a lack of fun there, which a part of the journey for sure is recognizing you can have fun by yourself, but it's more fun to have fun with more people, right? So you can hop in, like Maggie said, the link's going to be in the description below. Go hop in, request to join the group, and you'll get access to the bingo sheet and all the prizes and things that we're giving away for people that get bingo or complete the full sheet and get tapped into all the fun that we are having. But, oh my gosh. Okay, Maggie. So I definitely felt this when I first started to think about sobriety. And I know we've talked about this a lot in that initial hesitation. Now, moving past it And in those beginning phases, let's first chat on like why it is people might be feeling this way and why it is they feel a little lower and why we felt that, and what's going on in our brains with the chemical release and all of the things that are happening, that when we make a habit out of consuming alcohol and linking it with, fun, social things, why removing the alcohol then feels like woof.
I think wolf is like a really good way to describe, like, there's not even a word. It's just an onomatopoeia. Is that what they call?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, ah. But there is like a reason behind this. And it's not because the truth is that the only fun thing to do is alcohol. That's not the truth. That's just the product of the chemical imbalances that are not natural to you. It's not your DNA. It's not something that you inherited. It's something that has occurred over time by practicing using alcohol. And so, again, we don't have to put a name to it, addiction, AUD. We don't have to do anything like that. But if you look at your life and you're like, okay, I've practiced drinking at least one time a week, overindulging each time that I do, AKA binge drinking, even just one time a week, then my body is going to naturally be in this state where it is adapted to getting this huge flush of dopamine at least every 6 to 7 days. And in between that dopamine rush of artificial dopamine, let me remind you.
Yeah, and to clarify, guys, like literally when you consume alcohol, the alcohol hits your bloodstream, gets into your bodily functions and everything that's happening naturally. That's when this artificial dopamine is in your system, right? So that's
Right.
like, that's the tips. You're like, oh, now I'm social. Now I can talk to people. Now this is fun. Like, and that's that feeling. That's artificial, right? So there's the artificial dopamine that's happening. And then there's also the natural release of dopamine that's happening when you attach, and you do this routinely, where a lot of the things you look forward to do involve alcohol. A lot of the time with your friends involves alcohol. A lot of the events you go to, the concerts, the parties, the social gathering, the girls' nights, the game nights, like anything, a show, if it includes alcohol and you're constantly looking forward to these things, your body actually starts to learn like, oh, well, that's the thing that I look forward to. That's the thing that while I'm in that moment, I'm experiencing fun. So even just the thought of it gets this dopamine release happening within your body and within your brain. And, when it becomes a habit, like Maggie said, even just like, once a week, once a month, a few times a month, a few times a week. If that is routinely where you find your fun, that routinely becomes where your body learns to release that dopamine. So then it's like, okay, remove the alcohol, and it feels like, well, how would I go to a concert without alcohol? How would I go to girls' night and I refrain? Seems boring, and that's why that feels hard, because you constantly kind of married the two. You've constantly married fun, anticipation, excitement, social, and alcohol. And when those all mean the same thing, it means without the alcohol means I can't have any of the other things as well.
Yeah. And to understand dopamine, I think for me, it really clicked when people would say like dopamine is the happy hormone, but it's actually the pleasure hormone. And there's a difference between happiness and pleasure. Pleasure is like that high that you feel through something, an external stimuli. But happiness is something that we feel just contentment, peace. We are in our environment. We're thriving where we are without needing something external. So dopamine really is this anticipatory neurotransmitter that is connected with whatever you classify as being pleasurable. And if you continue to drink for your hobby, for pleasure, then your entire dopamine system is hardwired to only see the fun with drinking. And as we go through some of the things that Annie and I had to like experiment with, a lot of them at first glance, you might experience this. When we say them, your first reaction is going to be like, oh, hell no, that's boring as shit. But that is because of the way that you have kind of depended on that artificial dopamine plus the natural dopamine that is connected with your idea of drinking. Because here's what happens with that really high influx of dopamine coming in, the false dopamine every time you drink, your body wants to maintain homeostasis, right? It's like it shouldn't be too high up. It should be pretty balanced. So in order to keep that balance, your brain has these dopamine receptor sites. It's going to say that's way too much. Let's say your brain has 10 dopamine receptor sites, for example. It'll shut down 5. And it'll say, okay, these doors are shut, only allow things through the other half. Well, that's great when you are drinking so that you're not so overstimulated. But those receptor sites don't automatically open the next day. Those ones that shut down during drinking, those doors, a lot of doctors would actually say very scarily, say those doors are shut forever. We don't believe that they're shut forever. We believe that there's healthy ways to reopen those dopamine receptor sites, but also recalibrate your natural dopamine. Because if those doors are shut and your body isn't producing natural dopamine outside of the thoughts of drinking or the act of drinking, then you're not going to feel good, right? So this is why taking 3 days off here and there, like you kind of trick yourself into thinking you're feeling good, but you actually don't. Your body needs a lot more time for that dopamine hormone to balance out, for your receptor sites to reopen, for your body to learn new things to look forward to and to connect dopamine with. Like now, Annie and I, we are like so excited to go for our workouts. Like that's what releases the dopamine, just to think about going to work out, because we've connected that receptor site with pleasure of exercise. So kind of beyond the science talk, that just helps us understand why everything feels boring. It's not that it is boring. It's that your brain doesn't know how to feel about it yet. Without the experience, there's no new neural pathways. So let's talk about the experience. Before we do, Annie, did I leave anything out with dopamine too?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and this is why I feel when I look back on my journey with alcohol, like I would do these little 3-day stints or little like week-long stints, or the sober Octobers and the month-long, or, oh, let me do this fitness challenge. And for the whole month, I'm just not going to drink. And then obviously I don't have a problem. So then I'll just resume, And so when you only give yourself, let's say 30 days or a weekend or a week, and your whole purpose is, well, I'm not going to drink, and like prove this to myself that I can do that. And you're not actually out there experimenting with life and forming new connections of excitement and looking forward to new things and trying new hobbies, meeting new people, putting yourself in new environments to kind of dabble in and experience and have this like, oh, I have this like nervous excitement about this pottery class that I'm going to and all the people that are going to be there. And when you just say, well, I'm just not going to drink this week, I'm just going to be home and like do this like, self-healing weekend, most likely, great. You can do 3-4 days without alcohol, stay at home, binge Netflix, even get up and go to the gym and walk, but like you're not getting yourself excited about anything. You're kind of just like kicking the can down the road a little bit and saying like, well, like this is, as long as I can do this for 4 days, like great. You're not helping your brain rewire and start to have that healing process and the time to recreate those pathways, reopen those doorways, those receptors, and attach dopamine release to new activities that you're doing. If you're just sitting on your couch, most likely like you're probably not going to feel much excitement when all your friends are out and you're like, no, I'm not drinking this weekend, so I'm just going to stay in, or I'm just like do a puzzle and like post a picture on my Instagram story and tell everyone that I'm having so much fun. If you're not genuinely feeling like nervous excitement, like eagerness, okay, like, ooh, these jitters inside, then there's nothing for you to start that process. So like, this is why I experienced so many of those kind of like ups and downs in experimenting with my sober's curiosity without actually sticking to it, is because I wasn't experimenting with life. I was strictly saying, well, I guess no drinking is going to be good enough. And then when I realized that it kind of wasn't, I was still feeling low. It's because I didn't give myself the amount of time. And then also I wasn't actively doing work or actively applying myself in new areas to put my energy into and to get excited about and to form connections and relationship and start to build that kind of form of life around. And so, again, like if you guys kind of feel a little bit of hesitation around the idea of sobriety, simply the word makes you feel like, then I get it. I for sure get it. But for me, I actually remember I was telling Maggie this like right before we hit record, and I remember the day, like visceral excitement. I remember I just finished coaching clients, and I think I was like a few days before my 12-week mark, and I was driving, the sun was shining, I'm on the highway, and I had this moment of, oh my God, I love my clients, and I'm going to call my mom because I just want to talk to her, and I love her, and oh my God, like I'm going to go home to my dog, Gibbs, and he is so cute, and oh my God, this life and this world, and it was literally, it sounds like I'm like tripping, but I'm dead sober, 6, 7 a.m., the sun is just up, and it hit me like, my body is doing this work for me. Like I've been on the journey. I've been doing the things. I've been applying myself and giving my body time to do the rewiring. That 12-week mark was huge for me. And not just merely the 12-week mark of no alcohol. That's it. It was 12 weeks of deep digging, of experimenting with new things, playing around with new hobbies. We're going to list out some of the things that I've done. Maggie's going to share some of hers, but it was in allowing myself to play and to find enjoyment and excitement in new things that, old identity, alcohol identity, Annie wouldn't have even had the time, energy, mental capacity to put time into, because, and I've said this before, it's like when alcohol is on the table, it becomes that alcohol is number one and everything else comes last. And when we shelve that identity, we have so much room and space to then create a new identity and live into a new version of ourselves, that when you kind of take that approach to it, that's when true change and this like iconic transformation that we talk about, that's where that happens. So I guess let's dive in. Some of this fun, or did I miss anything?
No, I just wanted to add before we go into these, for anybody that's listening and it's like, 90 days, 12 weeks. I thought like, just taking a weekend off or 4 weeks, like that would do the trick. But understand that like time is relative. And if looking ahead, alcohol free for 90 days feels really hard, just think about how many years you've been doing the thing with alcohol to throw your dopamine and your mindset and your values and what you find exciting off. How many years has that behavior been present? That's not going to be fixed in 4 days of sitting off of drinking. That's not going to be fixed in 7 days. I would venture to say it can be improved, but not fixed in 1 month. So this is really why like that time is so important. 90 days feels like a long time, maybe when you're sitting in it. But I think back 16 years of my binge addictive drinking versus my first 90 days, my body bounced back from 15 plus years of nonsense and shenanigans in 90 days. That's a blimp. I can do that. Like, I want anybody to think about that.
I was going to say, actually, like, it probably feels more, 90 days feels longer when you're pre-conceiving it, when you're like,
when you're just contemplating it.
Yeah, when you're contemplating it, when you're thinking about it, you're like, oh my God. But then when you're in it, it's like all of a sudden, like, damn, like, well, I have plans. Like, I signed up for that Potter class and I signed up for that thing. And then I have that event in 2 weeks. And then I have that one thing. And oh, I'm excited for tonight because I'm getting together with the girls at the gym. And, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm 1 month into this. Like, and I still have more things I want to do. And like, and I feel like when you're in it, and taking this
Changes.
approach, it flies. And the thing I always tell people that have that like hesitation about the 12 weeks is like, I promise you, in 12 weeks, your friends will be at that same bar on Friday. Your friends will be at Bottomless Mimosas on Saturday, Sunday. Your Thursday night out group, they're still going out on Thursday. So in 12 weeks, if really truly you apply yourself and you take this approach and you lean in and you experiment and you let your body heal and you do some deep work and you're aligned with a community that's also doing the same, if you do all that and at 12 weeks you're like, go back, take it off the shelf and resume. I freaking bet you're going to get to the 12 weeks and be like, I would shelve now this identity for that? No, thank you, you know? And that's truly how I felt in this process and in this journey is like the more time I spend in this version of myself and have fun in the way that I have fun now, I'm like, sitting and just reordering drinks and just like having nonsense conversation and doing dumb shit. Like, even if it's not like over the top where you're, you know, sick the next day or, you know, it's like, what am I getting from that again? Like, it genuinely just doesn't compute in my brain. And so I choose to live in this identity of me, you know? So it's like, just know, like at the end of that, if you give yourself that 12 weeks, like 12 weeks is going to pass regardless. So do you want to do it in repeating the patterns you've been repeating, or do you want to do it in experimenting and trying out new patterns that could potentially serve you in ways that you're right now craving so heavily? So I just want to toss that out there for you guys.
We're picking it up, Annie. We're picking it up. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Some fun, sober activities that I have experimented with in my time. And some of these, like the first one, I put rock climbing. You guys, I had in my head, like, do you guys, Princess Diaries? And you know, when she's rock climbing and they do that splatter paint thing. I have this vision in my head. I'm like, I'm going to be a freaking badass rock climber. Like, this is dope. This is going to be my new hobby. I'm going to be like the rock climbing girl. Walk into the rock climbing gym because I was like, let's do it. And I booked it. And I brought a friend. And we showed up and we did our time. We did like about an hour. But I realized at the end of it, I needed to choose nails or rock climbing because you can't have both. You can't have both. And so for me, yeah, it was very hard to clutch onto those rocks. And for me, I was like, that was fun. I'm proud of myself for doing that. And have I done it since? No. But was it fun? And we were cracking up the whole time, you know, trying to jump from things and like trying to be these badasses. And it was such a fun experience to have and like to lean into. But it's something that since then I've simply just kind of crossed off and been like, done. Don't feel the need to now do it again. Do you have any of those?
Yeah, but like, didn't that make you feel proud that at least you tried it and like you got a taste of adrenaline? Like, I found
100%. Yeah. I mean, even just like walking in there, like I felt awesome. Like I remember it was, I don't know, like a early Friday afternoon and just walking in there being like, yeah, we're going to rock climb. Like instead of, you know, early afternoon, Annie would be walking into happy hour.
Right.
At the same bar because they started early and, you know, getting that martini going real quick. And like just the difference in where the facility, the environment, the place I was stepping into was like, yeah, I'm sporty girl spice.
Oh, I love that. And doing these things does like change how you perceive yourself. Like sporty, I like adrenaline. I like climbing walls dangerously, like things like that. One that I found that I really freaking love is the trampoline park.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And it was really funny because when I first thought about going, back in my drinking party girl self, I was like, that's for kids. Like, oh, there's going to be screaming children everywhere. Oh, it would never be fun.
Or like, oh, they don't serve alcohol there, do they?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, is there a bar? How am I going to jump with a drink in my hand? That kind of thing. And it was like I had all of these preconceived notions that really just formed a shitty attitude about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went. And first off, yeah, I was one of the only adults that was jumping, but I looked over at the side of the trampoline. It was all the parents sitting there, not enjoying their life on their phone, looking at their watch, like waiting for the experience to end. And I was like, why aren't these parents out here? This is so fun.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was a mild sense of like adrenaline, doing something different. They had these trampolines you could run up like the side of almost like a skate ramp, it seemed like.
Yeah.
You could do flips. And I'm not an acrobatic, but I was definitely having fun trying. And I think it just taught me to like not take myself so seriously. So I walked in all rigid, thinking like, I'm going to be the only adult. I'm going to not have any fun because there's no alcohol, blah, blah, blah. And then like 30 seconds on the trampoline, I was like, I want to do this every day.
I can totally see you like, like, like,
yeah, like
even just that release, like, it's so funny because I think also another thing you had touched on was like when I was drinking, I would always say, like, talk about these interests that I have, or like old version of me. Like I'd talk about like being a gymnast and like, oh my God, I love like skydiving and like, have you guys done this? Have you done? And I would talk about these things all the time. And I remember feeling like people were hearing me, but it was like, how are
I'm
you
not
doing?
actually
Really?
yeah.
You're skydiving and you're a gymnast, you're an athlete, you're a personal trainer, you're all these things, but you're at the bar Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, really? And then I know that was like a constant dichotomy I fought internally because it was like, I have these interests, but it's like I wasn't taking action around them. So it felt like I was just somebody talking about like the high school glory days. And
That's
I'm like,
what it was making me think about. I was like, if you didn't change, then you would literally be the state football player talking about it at his neighborhood bar when he's 50 years old.
Like, oh my God, cringe. And so that's one thing that I'm so proud of myself, of like, now I'm not only like the girl that talks about being such an adrenaline junkie, such like a adventurous type, like, you know, independent and so good solo and traveling and doing all the things. I don't just talk about that. Like I do it. Like, you know, I will literally book the trip. I will go skydiving. I will, you know, be in a hot air balloon Monday morning.
I was gonna say you just did hot air balloon, so
yeah.
I feel like I could get down with that one.
Yeah, like it just confirms the thoughts like that you might be letting live in your head rent free, and to lean into them that of itself is just fun, you know. Another one that I put down was camping. So Maggie and I had an experience. I have never really camped. I mean, I was in the military, so I was like almost forced into it, but I like to consider that almost like a hostage situation. But just kidding. But it wasn't out of desire. It was like, you know, a training exercise. So we went camping and we did like a 25-mile round trip hike and have a soup by, went and explored all the waterfalls, and then camping for 4 days in the middle of the desert, nowhere, canyons. And what we brought on our back was what we had to survive off of. And it was the most fun that I never knew I could have.
I literally never would have predicted that I would be at the bottom of the Grand Canyon putting up a tent in the middle of March in my 5th year of sobriety. Like, that seemed bonkers. I actually remember telling you on our hike down, there was like this picture that I saw. It was like a stock photo that I think I used on like one of my very first websites. And it was like a picture of 3 people that were hiking and they're all laughing and they're drinking their Camelback waters. And like, when I used to see that photo from my drinking identity, and anything like that, any people outdoors living up the life, hiking, adventuring, I would look at them and be like, God, I wonder how bored they are, because that Camelback is filled with water and not vodka. And like, my assumption was, oh, they're out there hiking it must suck without drinking. And the opposite of that is true. Like, could you imagine if we hiked and we were feeling hungover and like our campsite had all of these rules about, no alcohol allowed, no parties, no late night shenanigans and all of this. And we're like, thank goodness we find so much joy in none of that anymore, that we're not going to break the rules. Like old Maggie would have rolled in there with a Camelback full of 2 gallons of vodka and snuck it in and probably got us kicked out for partying at night. And like, we had so much fun.
Yeah. I used to look at very similar like photos, like typically like workout photos or stuff, or I would see stuff on like social media. If I'm like I'm a big brunch girl, but brunch really just meant mimosa vibes, bottomless and keep them running.
Yeah.
And an early start to then what ended up being crazy Saturday night, right? And so I would see people like getting their workouts in on a Saturday morning or going grocery shopping. I remember asking a friend being like people are romanticizing their Trader Joe's trips. I'm like, why how is that fun? Like,
are there samples of shots in the Trader Joe aisle? Because I don't think that
I would rather be with my friends, like repeat ordering this mimosa. That's fun. Like, I don't even want to. I felt this like just such a resistance to just the simple, which, I mean, it's so wild because now I do romanticize my Trader Joe trips and I do love just going for a stroll by myself and I do love being productive on a Saturday morning. And like, it's just so wild the way when you give your time, your brain time to heal, to rewire, to change, how then your perception of fun and of what you want to do with your time also changes. Like another one I put down was, I'm looking out of it right now, out of my window. I put up my hammock from our camping trip in my backyard. And this week, actually, I have spent hours on that hammock just reading. And that is, I have been loving those moments. And there's no I need to either document this or show people this or, okay, well now I'm here now, now what? Like, it's just this pure bliss of like, I'm loving this book and the weather outside is perfect. And oh my God, what a beautiful day. And like, just these simple things and vitamin D, get on my skin. And like, it's that. And I so enjoy that. And
but like,
might be one that's boring.
That's the proof that like happiness is a state of mind. And there was nothing happening to you for you to be like, oh, this is awesome. Like, you're literally reading in a hammock and you're euphoric. You're like, this is amazing. That's the proof that your body and your hormones are functioning properly. Had you done that 2 years ago, what would you have been sitting in the hammock thinking about?
I literally probably would have just been like, honestly, taking a picture to post or to just show like tranquil bitches at peace, like, I don't know, something. And then would have just been like, okay, skirt next. Like, now what, or like, okay, like I just got to do something else or like, where's the fun or where's something or like distract myself. There was no like just sitting in peace. This is something I've talked about before. It's like, I was constantly choosing chaos, escaping peace, thinking it was boredom.
Because that chaos was actually miswired in her brain saying chaos is fun. Yeah. The high level of dopamine and cleaning up the mess of what drunk Annie or drunk Maggie caused. Like that's fun. So our brain literally redefines fun. And in those downtimes in between drinking, anything that could be fun is not fun anymore. But because you did the work, you can now sit in a hammock. And from my point of view, I was like, Maggie 5-6 years ago sitting in a hammock, I might have snapped the healthy picture and then I would have poured a glass or 5 of wine and sat in the hammock and sent out a bunch of inappropriate text messages probably. So, like
definitely.
Now she's able to sit in the hammock and read and have fun. I actually had reading and learning on my list because, I think, with this portion, it's important to like figure out what you are like. And if you are somebody that gets excited when you learn a new thing, then spending your time reading and learning is going to be very fun. I know Annie and I both yearn for like figuring out why, figuring out solutions, doing programs and coaching so that we can understand why this thing happens. And like when we learn that, we're like, oh, we feel so proud of ourselves. We start to understand we're really in control of our lives. So like reading personal development books for me is like my new favorite drug. I'm like, I can do this with my life. I can do that. It gets my imagination running in the right direction. It has me feeling so motivated. It gives me proof of other people that have gone through adversity and now are successful. And I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it too. And it just changes how I feel. And so sitting by the pool and reading my book, not sitting by the pool, guzzling my mimosas, like that would have sounded freaking wild. But now it's what my mind craves. And we know this might sound really lame to you right now, but experiment and experience this for yourself, because that's what changes the way your brain forms. So
100%. Another few ones that I had just for like ideas that I loved. I'll run through dance lessons. Like literally just Google like dance lessons near me. So fun. I did salsa and tango and like all those ones that awesome. Eventbrite. This is an app and it's like a community event connection app, right? So I will literally on the weekly, I will go on Eventbrite and I'll just like search my zip code and scroll and see like what catches my eye. I've done workout meetups. I've done like nonprofit fundraiser events. I've done, I did a breathwork one the other week. I'm actually doing one on Saturday, next weekend. It's acupuncture, breathwork, and grounding. I'm doing it on Saturday morning. Yeah. And these are a lot of times they're just like low ticket sort of things happening in your community. They can be like education based, connection based. There's like networking, like speed dating. Like there's so many things happening around you that you might not even know where to find. But Eventbrite for me has been awesome. Hot yoga. I do weekly deep tissue massages, which now I literally, that's dopamine. Like, babe, oh my God. Like the way I look forward to that massage. And it's just, and the cool thing is it's not even like queuing up to like a wild night or anything. It literally queues me up for like some of my favorite nights are just like, I do this deep tissue, do hot yoga, usually hot yoga first, deep tissue. And then I go home. Sometimes I treat myself to some froyo, watch a movie, go to bed early and like get up for a sunrise hike in the morning. That is literally my favorite series of events from a Friday to Saturday morning that brings my soul so much joy and excitement. Even just thinking about it right now, I'm like, oh my God, is that what I'm doing this weekend? Like, you know, and
I think it's that feeling that replaces the drink.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, but what am I going to do on Friday night if I'm not drinking? You're going to be feeling so proud of yourself, so happy, so joyful, so peaceful. And that you will not want to replace that with drinking. Yeah. I know I interrupted you, but I think people have this disconnect of like, they haven't felt good about themselves in so long. They're not comfortable even expecting that feeling on a Friday night after doing hot yoga and a deep tissue massage. They're like, yeah, but then I'm just going to sit at home alone. It's like, no, you're going to sit at home by yourself and you're going to feel like a baller.
Yeah. Like literally just knowing I'm doing things that are good for me, that I will not regret, that I will feel better after, that are giving me peace. And that's who I am. Like, you know, and it's no longer just bar talk where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm into fitness and like, that is me, but here YOLO, like, bitch, you gotta have balance, you know, like this is fine. I can, you know, binge drink on the weekends and then hit my workouts. Like, no, it's like literally just my lifestyle of who I am gives me so much joy. But like that lifestyle was built figuring it out, experimenting with a bunch of different things. Some of the things like rock climbing that I just didn't like. I did a series of dance classes. I loved it, but I didn't like re-up a package or get more dance lessons. Like done, proud of myself, love that I did that. But it's in like experimenting and trying new things and learning what you like and what you don't. And, you know, maybe trying one thing on Eventbrite. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know I would love this type of person that goes to these type of events. And now that I'm kind of connected to that community, now I have a friend that is doing this thing and brought me along here. And, it's like you have to get out and do to learn and to gain this like self-awareness and this knowledge and understanding of the type of person you want to be. And that gets you excited for waking up in the morning, because that really, truly, getting up in the morning can be something that gets you excited, and it isn't filled with dread, and it isn't like, oh, what? It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Like I got, those thoughts of just like avoiding the entirety of life to get to the drink or the wine night or the bar or the club or whatever. It's like, it's so crazy to me when I look back and think of like the small circle of things I thought were fun literally kept me from finding the fun in the huge, vast, expansive world that is at my freaking fingertips.
That made me so sad when you were just saying it, because I recognize I really did want to fast forward through all of the portions of my life that were not sitting at a table with an alcoholic beverage in front of me. Ugh. Yeah. I want to cry at that, but let's move on. Let's move on.
So now some things that we want to do and we're going to do that are fun in sobriety. And again, just giving you guys some ideas, and also it's so fun and serving to like plan and dream and imagine. And before like sobriety, it was like, because I wasn't taking action in any of the thoughts, the plans, the dreams that I had in my head, it was almost like it kept me from doing more of that. And it kept me from like getting excited about the dreams and desires that I had in my head. When I was drinking, it's because I wasn't taking any action on the thoughts and the dreams and the goals and the things that I were thinking about. Like I wasn't building confidence in what I could do. So it's so fun in removing alcohol and shelving that identity and then experimenting with like all these little fun things that we're talking about, like doing each and every little tiny fun thing, climbing a freaking tree because you feel like it, and jumping and getting your neighbor's lemons off the tree and making fresh lemonade, like doing those things that you think about and showing up, having fun, like just like even a moment of like, oh, okay, I did that. Like, cool. It doesn't have to be something that you're like, wow, now I'm a lemon farmer and a lemonade creator. Like, no, it doesn't have to be your whole identity, but it's just like proving to yourself that like, okay, the things that come into my head, I can then put into action. And I know I can do that. So like now it's such a foundational belief to me of like, oh my God, like I can have a dream of doing XYZ and I know I'm capable of it. So like, how do I make that happen? And so some of the things Maggie and I wanted to share with like some of the goals and ideas that we have in our head about things we're going to do in the future that we haven't yet done. My first on the list is a trip to Maine. I have been to all 50 states except for Maine. So 49 states. Maine's the last one. And I'm so excited to go up to Maine, which is funny. It's not like a state like, Florida or California,
not like
or
the exotic place of America.
Big like city, like LA, Chicago. Mm-hmm. It's none of that. It's literally Maine. And when I've verbalized this to people, they're like, so what's in Maine? And I'm like, me eventually hitting 50 states. That's what's in Maine, bitch. Like, and that is fun to me. And that's what, like, just checking that out. Like, I'm like, so I know I'm going to do something dope in Maine. It might even just literally be in Maine, take a weekend to myself, spend a weekend writing, I know Maine's really beautiful. So like, I don't know what's going to happen, but that's like first on my list.
Yeah. And maybe that's, you just take your same favorite routine, go get a hot yoga class in, a deep tissue massage, and then a workout on Saturday morning just in Maine. Like, knowing that you are where you have wanted to be for a long time, that in and of itself will make everything fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. It's like your state passport book. You need that last 50th stamp.
No. Oh, I wish I had one of those.
I know. Well, mine, the first thing that I wrote down is playing saxophone with my husband, who is a DJ. So my husband is military, but in his free time, he DJs house music, which I didn't even know what that was when him and I first met. We have very different musical tastes. And so that's somewhere we didn't really get along. It's like, I want to listen to this, but I want to listen to that. House doesn't even have any words. But then I have, like, as I've, been married to him, I've been listening to more and more house music. And a portion of house music that I really like is instrumental. And before I became Party Girl Maggie, I was first chair alto saxophone for 5 or 6 years during school. And then when I picked up on the fact that marching band people are geeks, I gave up the saxophone so that I could be Party Girl Maggie. And that was something that always weighed on me. It was like this talent and this passion that I had is now just sitting in a case under my bed, and I never pull it out. I don't even know how to read music anymore. It's kind of how I would think. And that weighed on me. And then I started hearing these house songs where there was this beautiful saxophone, and I would see in my head, like, my husband, like, DJing on his mixing board. And then here I come surprising everybody with my saxophone and, like, just rocking out. And I'm like, that would be so fun for my husband and I together, but also like throwing parties, doing events like that. It would just be something that was so exciting to me. So over the course of, I'd say, the last 6 months, I've been taking more lessons and watching like YouTube music reading for beginners, like just trying to get back into it and learning my scales again, learning how to read the music. So that's been something that's been really fun and increases my self-esteem. And then like the joy of how much fun Brian and I are going to have together, just setting the tone for a festival at our house or something. Like,
I love it. Oh my God. I need to hear this now. I want to be a fly on the wall for your next practice.
Yeah. Well, I'll send you the videos of the inspo of the girls that I listen to. They're like in Ibiza playing on stage with bubbles.
No, I've seen it.
Yeah.
That's so in.
I'm like, that's going to be Brian and I.
Oh my God, I love it. You need to look up Erling.
Oh yeah, that's one that like, I was like, that's house, but I love it. I don't feel like it misses words because it has the instrumental.
Yeah. And literally, I mean, one of my favorite songs by him, I don't know if it's like a singular DJ. Some of these, the DJs are like, they're a pair or it's a group or like the live musicians plus the DJ. So anyway, one of my favorite songs by this group is called I Feel Good. And it's actually the first song on our High Vibes
playlist. Yay.
That's crazy. But I love that song. I play that song when I'm just like, I mean, it goes like, I feel good.
You're like, you can't help but feel good. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. My next one is actually would have sounded like death to me. Something I'd rather like lick the floors of my house clean before I would do, especially do for fun. And it's now something that gives me I know I'm going to do it one day, guys. I'm saying it out loud here first. Maggie's already heard this, but I know she's like anticipating what it's going to be.
I know. Like, what is this?
Tell her all the things. Walk across America. Like on my 2 feet, walk the span of America, which is about, it's right over 3,000 miles. And I would, honestly, the idea of doing that sounds so fucking fun to me. It sounds wild, crazy. Who the hell would do that? Annie Graft, of course. And yeah, that's like walking for days on days and days and days. When I do the math, it is walking about 40 miles a day for about 75 days straight. I'm in. Sign me up.
I remember this coming from originally hiking in Havasupai, and you're like, I wonder how many miles I could do in a day if I had to, you know? And then this turns into I'm walking across America. And I just love how your brain works. It goes from like one question to like, this is my dream. I'm going to make it happen.
The like interim there was like me literally Googling like, what's the women's world record for fastest, by foot cross of America? And I was like, what's the world record? Like, and it's so crazy because like literally only in shelving that old alcohol identity of me did this identity of me come forth, where I'm like, I genuinely, and not out of ego, but like genuinely believe that I am capable of whatever the fuck I want to do. And it's just me deciding what it is and then doing it. Like, I have so much confidence in that, but it was only built by literally taking an idea and just being like, I'm a messy action this out and we'll figure the rest out later, you know? And then the more you like just book the pottery class and you just rock climb the wall and you just, you know, pick up the saxophone and you just call the friend and have the hard conversation. Like the more you just do the things, you're like, oh, okay, first off, I know I'm capable. And when the activity is done, the world's still spinning. I kind of got a kick out of that a little bit. I am breathing. I'm okay. Wow. Let's do it again, you know?
Okay. I'm just going to jump to my last, just for time's sake today. I think my biggest thing that I want to do, that is something that, you know, Annie and I are practicing every day because that's the only way we ever get to doing the things we want, is I want to lead TSC in a way that it replaces AA as like the household name for what to do if you're drinking. And I think this is where I've married like my passion with my daily work. And I think that's so important for anybody that is feeling lackluster about their life. Like there's not a lot of fun. Maybe that's a byproduct of spending 40 hours a week doing something that's, you know, not fun to your character, but you think you have to do it for money. That whole thing. I mean, that's a whole nother episode in and of itself. But for me, the biggest thing that I want to do in life is, you know, 20, 30, maybe even just 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, to know that people are sitting around a table. And if one of them openly discusses, hey guys, I'm having a problem. I don't like the way that I'm drinking. I don't like the way I'm showing up. I'm depressed. That the other people around the table would say, have you heard of the sober experiment? Instead of saying, I think you might need to go to a meeting. I think you might need to do the 12 steps.
They say, I think you got some experimenting to do.
Yes. And that brings me so much joy to think about that in the future. But in day to day, that means us, you know, showing up for our members, showing up for ourselves as coaches and leaders. And those little things are fun to me. Those little things bring me joy. Like Annie will text me and I'll be like, my idea of fun on a Saturday is if I need to sit on the couch with my laptop and get the Discord community set up and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, let's input the coaching video. Let's do that. And it's like, it's because that's fun to me. It's because helping people is fun. And maybe your big, maybe like life goal of thing I want to do, think about what brings you joy when it comes to others and how can you do that day to day?
Yeah. That's so wild that was your last one, because my last one was host a in-person retreat for the sober experiment, and I put Bali ? So marrying like the two things I love most: travel, adventure, community, and sobriety, and the sober experiment. And you know, I think that would for me be like a culmination of everything. Like I'm sure traveling out of the country is a little, you know, nerve inducing for a lot of people. And then going with a group that you might not, you know and live right next to, and doing it in a way where alcohol's not on the table or not a focus of the event, you know, and, you know, paying money to go on an experience and try new things and all these things. I'm just like, one day we're going to do that. And I know planning that trip, planning the location, the activities, getting other like mentors and coaches on board to offer meditation and acupuncture and breath work and a scuba diving class and like, you know, all these other things in the container of like, this is the sober experiment, and you're experimenting with life. You're experimenting with yourself. You're experimenting with joy and happiness and fun and rewiring that dopamine all over, healing yourself and creating a life you freaking love. Like, I know we're going to do that one day. So
That
that's
gives
something
me
that's,
so many chills to think about. I love the idea of us coming together and all being able to like hug and squeeze each other and learn together and sit in the same physical room.
yes.
Let's manifest that shit, baby. I love it.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, I love this episode. It really truly just like got me so excited about the life that I've created and the life that we are honestly just like giving that verbal permission to somebody that might be hesitant about it. And that makes me really happy. And to anybody listening that you're like, oh, I needed this, or like, wow, this gave me some ideas, or maybe you want more ideas. Remember, check that description. We have the link in there to go join the community for our Sober Confident Collective. You can get in there, get surrounded by these good vibes. And by, I say it's really home for the sober curious, the silently sober, the secretly sober, and the sober confident, all in one place to chat, mingle, connect, dig deep, have some uncomfy conversations, experiment with life, and ultimately have fucking fun doing it. And so that's
Yes.
what we're doing in there. Come play Sober Bingo with us and have all the ideas of what to do in your time.
And the family backing you up behind it. It has been so easy for me to say that I want to try new things. But as soon as we started playing Sober Bingo, I was like, oh, now I'm really going to do this. That added echelon of like the game of it and like all playing together and wanting to see how far you go. And that makes it so fun. So come play with us and keep listening along. Thank you so much for being here so far. We have a lot more healing, real juicy conversations coming up for you. And in the meantime, just sending you lots of love, high vibes, hugs. That's OJ in the kitchen.
Bye, you guys.